The year's already been incredible for indies so far with Esoteric Ebb, Mugenics, Me the Hollower, and more, and now Steam Next Fest is back to prove that's not going to slow down anytime soon, so let's get into it. What do you get when you combine a fantasy setting with Dispatch? Hopefully less toxic fanbase. I joke.
You suck!
I know.
You get Sovereign Citizen, although this game doesn't have two baddies to fight over. It does have some absolutely gorgeous art, with the style that feels like it combines the whimsical storybook feel with comic books, making for a look that feels very fun and inviting but with a bit of grit under the surface, hinting at the more difficult decisions that the game will present to you. You, thanks to a prophecy, are the newly elected leader of a dying kingdom, tasked with returning it to its former glory and staving off the growing empire. Thankfully you have the help of a magic tower, your various knights, and a demon. I'm pretty sure he's trustworthy. Kind of like Dispatch, there's two halves the game is split between: narrative-driven choices and a mini-game where you send out your knights on missions, the success of which is determined by their stats. But those two halves felt way more tied together here. The choices felt nuanced and difficult, like one where I had to investigate the leader of a rebellion, which led to me either helping the current leader or to overthrow them. And what was interesting about that story was the motivations of the rebel leader felt a little suspicious to say the least, and they hardly seemed like a strong leader, but also the current ruling class may very well have been mistreating their subjects, at least according to the rebel leader. The game never quite gave you all the details, and it was never a clear-cut good or bad scenario, leading me to bite my nails over what choice to make, but none of this would be possible at all if not for your trusty knights. When you get a mission, like investigating the rebel movement, it will have certain stats that need to be met, and based on those, you send the best knight out for the job. But the knights also have traits like being competitive, loving animals, and negative ones too, as well as items that can all determine the success or failure. And failure is rough, because there is permadeath, which I learned the hard way. And that particularly sucked because I did kind of fall in love with some of these characters. Those traits I mentioned, some are hidden and you discover them as you play, but the characters are also written well enough that you can kind of intuit at least some of those traits. Like, you can tell that the pretty boy with the nice hair probably won't like helping a lady garden for the day, or that the knight who asked for a pet cat the first time you saw them is probably good with animals. And these traits provide little buffs or debuffs during missions, so it was actually beneficial to read the mission description, because even if the knight's stats looked perfect for the role, their personality may not, and it could be the difference between success or failure. And these characters were really lovable. I want to see the awkward Angelica succeed, and all the little scenes you get with all the knights between days were endearing, making all the more nerve-wracking sending them on missions they may not be the best suited to, but you need the job done. And sure, the story doesn't revolve around romancing two waifus, because it has way more. We got himbos, we got lovable losers, we got goth girls, and oh no. Look, I know he's handsome, but you'd be better off flirting with a rock. I mean, hey, it worked out for Pygmalion, and the world building that's slowly revealed to you with all the political machinations had me intrigued, not to mention all the fantasy elements like the demon and the talking statue and the time travel. And learning about them all and all the characters helped with the management part of the game, which in turn led to more choices, more characters. You have to balance your relationship with all the different factions. Everything feeds into each other wonderfully. I'm very much looking forward to leading my kingdom, hopefully to prosperity, when it releases on August 6th. But if the fantasy dispatch blend wasn't to your taste, how about a unique mix of XCOM, Cairn, with a sprinkling of Darkest Dungeon in Ascenders Beyond the Peak. It's a turn-based strategy game, but instead of shooting things, you're climbing a mountain. You start with 3 characters climbing Mount Everest in an attempt to discover what happened to another group that disappeared earlier on. And obviously there's no combat, there's no monsters to fight. Instead, you have to carefully manage your stamina, finding precarious ledges to stand on to regenerate a bit each round, while dodging falling debris and the weather, all while gathering resources so you don't starve as you make your way to the top. And you're on a bit of a time limit as you try to get to the top of each level to make camp before nightfall or risk exhaustion, which can carry over to the next level, which makes things like injuries and depleted stamina that much more harrowing because it doesn't magically go away. It will affect the next level, making it very easy for things to snowball. You do make camp between each level, but there are trade-offs. You can craft things to help you out, but you have to assign a character to do that overnight so they don't get as much rest for the next day. But then again, making them rest means losing out on potentially helpful items. It's all about that risk reward and mitigating losses where you can. You can also come across the remains of previous expeditions, all of which seem to have died mysteriously or gone completely insane, and roll some dice to learn more and get some resources, fueling and slowly building the Lovecraftian vibes that, along with the art style, the game clearly pulls from Darkest Dungeon, in the best ways possible. If you're going to pull from Darkest Dungeon, the art style is a great place to do it. Its dark, grimy look just naturally creates a moody, uneasy atmosphere. Resources felt invaluable, and they are rare, and starvation, I hear, kinda sucks, making it a necessity but a risky one to spread your group out to gather as much as you can, because all 3 characters are tied together, giving you a saving grace if one falls, but that also may create dead weight weighing down the rest of your team. You can cut them loose to save the rest of your group, or you can try to push forward and save them. It's a tough call to make, made tougher by the fact that each character has a unique ability like a pickaxe that can open up new paths or a grappling hook to pull them across gaps that you probably don't want to lose. But also because characters are tied together, that limits their movement. You only have so much rope, so if I have one character way off to the left, then another character can't really move to the right or move up too far. So you have to be wary of that as well. A character may technically have enough movement to get to a ledge and rest, but because you sent one character out too far ahead, or to get some resources, they may not be able to reach it. It's just a unique layer that I never had to think about in any other strategy game I've played. The whole game reminded me a lot of Cairn from earlier this year, where yeah, there's no combat, but every single movement was filled with tension. Will I make it to the next ledge? Can I gather enough resources and time? Do I take a moment to craft but lose out on sleep? Do I risk starvation? The turn-based nature removes a bit of the tension, of course, but it replaces it with a more methodical nature. And like its inspirations, Ascenders constantly makes you feel like you're just making it through by just the skin of your teeth. Every movement feels risky but rewarding. You're also constantly worrying about longer term effects, like was it really worth leaving behind that bit of food, or will I be kicking myself later on it? But it's a fun tension, one that I look forward to more of when the game releases in Q3 2026. For those who prefer something a little bit simpler, well, you can never go wrong with a nice juicy steak. The rarer and bloodier the better, of course. Blood Dungeon is the latest from the Nidhogg devs and promises to ruin significantly less friendships. It's what Steam now dubs a bullet heaven, and I'm sure you've seen plenty of those by now. But what makes this one stand out is its side-scrolling, more platformer approach to the genre. Kind of funny how this genre was originally defined so much by its stripped back mechanics and simplicity, and now people are starting to add those things back like aiming in Ball Pit and now movement in Blood Dungeon. You still soak up a satisfying amount of orbs for the dopamine hit to level up, and your build is still crucial to your success, but so is your skill at navigating the terrain via jumping, ladders, and climbing on walls and ceilings to escape the encroaching horde. Making for some pretty heart-pounding moments as you thread the needle between a bunch of enemies to narrowly escape as your rocket launcher automatically blasts the enemies as you pass. Navigating the map is all too important. The map is randomized, but getting a good understanding of it was often the difference between living to fight for another minute or cornering myself. So I would spend the opening moments of a game just getting the lay of the land. And I'd find these walls locked by keys or turrets that you have to destroy to open them. And at first I didn't think much of them and just didn't bother because some of them I could just kind of go around. But let me tell you, when the screen is about 90% enemy, you're going to want as many paths open as possible. And climbing felt intuitive too. You kind of just stick to the wall or ceiling and you automatically climb. It kind of just worked. I never magnetized to a wall that I didn't want to, I never got stuck. It all just felt smooth and fluid. Build variety also felt solid, with everything from rocket launchers to giant swords and boomerangs to turn enemies into a bloody pulp, with a steady supply of new unlocks every single run. And the environment is littered with screen clearing dynamite or ice bombs, and one item that just sucks up all the loose XP that makes the dopamine go crazy. I'm normally not a big fan of this genre, but even I felt the time slipping away as I tried just one more run. Oh, and seeing your path through the level after a run was a really nice touch. Blood Dungeon doesn't currently have a release date, so hopefully hear more about soon. And for some more carnage, Fury Ball is a game I've had my eye on for a bit, and having now played the demo, I can confirm it has one of the most cathartic gameplay loops. Basically, in this post-apocalyptic world, everything revolves around Fury Ball, a simple game where you hit a ball with a bat with enough force to cut your opponent in twain. You enter a room, hit the ball at the closest opponent, and watch it careen around the room, picking up more and more speed with every hit. And it can go crazy if you do it right, and it's so satisfying when it goes a little bit out of control, leading to multiple kills that were definitely intentional, or you actually manage to react in time and knock it back. It looks awfully fast, and it is, but you can pull the ball into you with the right trigger and slow down time briefly as you charge up a swing, giving you time to aim for a good trick shot. Which sometimes is necessary, as some enemies can deflect the ball back at you or even catch it, which was kind of my one issue. Some enemies could catch the ball and just hang on to it, but that's your only source of damage, so you just can't really do anything, and it brings the combat to a screeching halt sometimes. But it didn't happen too often. Honestly, all I'd want them to do is reduce the time the enemy can hang on to the ball. I guess it does give you a chance to breathe though, I guess, but I like the chaotic nature, having to divide your attention between the ball so you position yourself to get a hit and clobber your enemies while also having to avoid said enemies. It's a lot going on at any given time, but in a fun way. It makes it feel like an adrenaline pumping death game where anything can happen at any moment. The game also has a pretty unique upgrade system. This is a roguelite, but the upgrades you get on a run are slotted into like the ball's bounces, so you can make it so that the first hit does double damage but can also hurt you. On the second bounce it applies fire, the third it drops the sludge to slow enemies, and mix and match as you go, until every bounce it does something different. Or of course, focus on one thing if you prefer. Not something you see very often, so I'm interested to see what weird builds I can make with that. But honestly, just whacking the ball and watching it zoom across the arena with lethal force is enough to get me in. Fury Ball has a release date of Q3 2026. But if you'd prefer to launch a door at your enemies with lethal velocity, then Kusan City of Wolves would satisfy your twisted power fantasy. Kusan is very much in the vein of Hotline Miami, but with 100% more furries, and that alone probably makes it 100% better for some people. These characters do have immaculate immaculate Dorito-shaped bodies. Story has you playing as an ex-soldier who definitely could use a therapist, and not just because he's a furry, who gets wrapped up in a conspiracy involving clones and psychic bombs. You of course deal with these problems by punching them, naturally. You die in one shot, death is quick, but the restart button is quicker. You don't pick up weapons dropped by enemies like you do in Hotline Miami, but you do get a suite of gadgets, like a throwing knife that's a one-hit kill but has a shorter range, a gun that takes a couple hits to kill, and of course a robotic arm that can launch various objects, inanimate or otherwise, across the room with lethal intent. Every room is like a little puzzle that somehow feels like a fast-paced dance. You die so easy you gotta plan everything out carefully, and once you do, executing on it can be a whole nother story. Bash the door in, throwing it at the guy with the gun, then quickly throwing your knife to another, and hope your aim is faster than the last guy, only to get chomped on by a dog moments later. It can be hectic, and success often boils down to trial and error, but it's a fun trial and error as you learn more and more of the map and enemy placement, and the quick restart time made it easy to just experiment and try new things. Enter the room from another door, maybe I open with one shot of the gun to stun a guy before punching the guy rushing towards me instead of the knife. It was addicting just trying things and bloody satisfying when your plan worked or you just got by with a quick reaction by the skin of your teeth. This one releases soon on July 30th. And if you want one last quick shot of adrenaline, then there's few better than Echo Breaker, a fast-paced speedrunning game that's basically if you took Neon White or Ghost Runner and made it isometric. Run through the maps, kill all the enemies along the way, do it as fast as possible. A simple loop that immediately had me hooked and hitting that reset button every time I took a corner just a little bit too wide. It's all about that movement, and Echo Breaker feels good to move in. Certain floors give you a speed boost, making you zoom across the map as you see your ghost from a past run beside you as you try to go just a little bit faster. You look around the map for any corner to cut, trying your best to make the landing to avoid either dying or a lengthy climbing animation. Temporary weapons can make short work of enemies and hit multiple ones, or sacrifice the weapon for a one-hit kill ranged attack that also destroys walls, opening up whole new paths that can shave seconds off your time. But it does destroy the weapon in the process, and you do have to kill all the enemies to proceed. And having to do even one extra hit can be detrimental to your run. So you're always weighing the pros and cons as you go. So I use up my weapon for a ranged attack, to kill this enemy, or just melee them and save the extra hits for later, or to find a shortcut later on. You can even sacrifice some health to dash through the air, so sometimes it's better to tank a hit to save half a second, or you can use that life to dash through the air after shattering a wall and running along another wall across a gap to skip part of the map. Echo Breaker very much had me going just one more run. I can shave off another second or so and look forward to competing with friends. Hopefully its release date comes quickly though, as it's scheduled for 2026. And to calm things down a little bit, Song of Glimmerwick has you playing a student going to a magical school, and you can farm too, because can you really get your cozy on without a little bit of farming? There has been a market for a story set in a magical school that comes with a little bit less baggage, and this one seems to be filling it. The town and school you go to is whimsical and just feels warm and inviting. The art style looking like it's ripped right out of a storybook certainly helps, and all the characters, human and otherwise, are just kind and nice to be around. And I love that there's fantasy creatures like mer people and stuff just roaming around. It makes it feel like I'm in a fairy tale. The unique hook for this game is that all magic is based around music. So to cast a spell, you don't just wave a wand, you play a jaunty little tune on your flute. And you do this through a Guitar Hero-esque minigame. You don't have to do the minigame every single time. If you get a good enough score, which was quite easy, it adds it to your hotbar and you can just use the spell at any time so long as you have mana, which can be regained with some delicious little snacks. Easy, breezy, and cozy. The vibes are chill, the stakes are low, there is technically a Persona-esque time management element where certain events and classes and stuff happen at certain days and times, but you also had plenty of time to get to them, so no worries. Song of Glimmerwick has all the right vibes, a fairy tale setting that is just nice to exist in. Like, who doesn't want to go to a magic school? And it's just relaxing. And we could all use something to relax a little more when it releases in 2026. There was of course a ton more amazing demos. What did you like? Remember to wishlist anything you found interesting, helps them more than you think. Like and subscribe and all that, and thanks for watching. Have a good one.